Back to the channel. My name is David. This is Fresh Faces, New Ideas. And if you like the content that I produce, you like what I do, please feel free to like and subscribe, or you can follow me on Twitter at Faces Ideas, or you can listen to me on the Center Left Radio podcast when I do that on Fridays. So this video, we're going to talk about the $15 minimum wage. Now, I've talked about it a bunch, but the COVID bill had a chance to pass it. So originally it was in the bill, and then the parliamentarian gave their recommendation, not a ruling. So anytime you hear somebody say it was the parliamentarian moved it because the parliamentarian said it couldn't be in there, they're wrong. It could have been in the bill if they chose to put it there by Kamala Harris. So what happened was Bernie Sanders produced an amendment to put it in the bill, and it was kind of expected to fail. There was hope that it wouldn't, but it failed. So we're going to talk about the senators who voted against it and some of the backlash that some of them are rightfully receiving. So let's get started. Okay, so here are the 8 senators who voted no on the minimum wage amendment. They're considered Dems because Angus King, even though he's an independent, caucuses with the Democrats, similar to the way Bernie is an independent, but he also caucuses with the Democrats. So there's a couple things to note here. 1, 8 was a lot. I didn't expect it to be 8. I thought it would maybe be like 3 at the most. But there are some telling things about who voted no against this. We kind of knew Manchin was going to do it. We knew Sinema probably was going to do it. I didn't really expect some of these other ones. So the key ones, and we're going to talk about Sinema in a minute because she had a very, very bad way to do this. So Joe Manchin, it was expected. There's reporting that he owns businesses in West Virginia, that if the minimum wage was raised to $15 an hour, he would lose some money on that. If it's moved to $11 an hour, his businesses would have to pay about 8 more cents an hour to his employees, or in that range, or they're paying 8 cents more than what it would be, because right now he's just barely paying them over $11. So there is some financial services for him in this. But the 2 key ones here are Coons and Carper. So why are they the 2 key ones? So the reason they are is because they're the senators from Delaware. And Coons is basically Joe Biden's unofficial voice in the Senate. So if Joe Biden wants to do a thing, and Chris Coons is basically Joe Biden's stance for it. So he's Joe Biden's stand-in. That's who they are. So the fact that both of them voted no really does put the nail in the coffin that they wanted this. Because to be clear, if the Democrats wanted to do this, Kamala Harris could have overruled the parliamentarian. It has been done before. And they could have whipped enough of these senators to vote to put this amendment in. So the things that are very clear here is this, all 8 of these senators. So Hassan and Shaheen, they've had interviews where they've said, look, I want the $15 minimum wage. This wasn't the right way to do it. The question every single one of these senators needs to be asked is, how do you expect to do this? Especially Manchin and Sinema. Although Manchin recently said, I'm willing to do some type of filibuster reform. The reason Manchin and Sinema are the most important ones to ask this following question is because they're the ones who don't want to change the filibuster. So the reason this was so important to do in this bill is because the threshold for this is only 50 votes. And as I'll cover in my next video, no Republican on either side, either in the House or the Senate, voted to give any aid to any Americans, period. It's indisputable. So the fact that they wouldn't respond to any of this bill shows that they're really not going to help anybody in the future. So having it as a 50-vote bill instead of a 60-vote bill means that it's more likely to be able to pass. That's why there was such a fight and such a hope that the $15 minimum wage would be in this bill, because it would allow it to pass without having to deal with the filibuster. I've done a video on the filibuster talking about that. So this is the problem with this bill is these 8 senators, some of them have said, look, I support a $15 minimum wage. I don't think it should be in this bill. Those senators especially, but all 8 of these need to be asked, how do you plan to pass a $15 minimum wage without removing the filibuster if through Republican control? And then it has to be asked from them every single time. And then if they say, well, we'll get 10 Republicans to it, you follow up and say, look, they would not help this COVID bill. They've made it very clear they're not going to help on any bill. What makes you think that you're going to be able to do this without removing the filibuster? And once again, this is especially important for Manchin and Sinema because they're the ones who are the stringent advocates for not doing anything to the filibuster. Although Manchin recently has said, I'm more open to playing around with the filibuster, not removing it, but similar to my other video, maybe segment different things, change how long debate has to go. I think his particular statement was he wants them to do a standing filibuster. So like I covered in my video, standing filibuster is when instead of just saying, okay, I'm just going to filibuster by not voting, standing filibuster is basically the depiction of the filibuster that everyone's used to seeing is I'm going to stand there and talk for 15 plus hours in order to get my point. And I think that's what he's more willing to do. And I think we can work on it from there. So the real big issue from this picture is Coons and Carper. But the reason there's more of them is all of these senators, they're giving cover to Manchin and Sinema. And the reason they're doing this is now that if they want to do a $15 minimum wage bill in the future, they're going to say, oh, look, there's a lot of opposition to it. It's not just the 10 plus Republicans we have to get almost 10 Democrats to get it. So we really need 20 votes to get it. So it pushes the goalpost a little harder, makes it more difficult to pass this minimum wage. Also, a reminder, the $15 minimum wage is the compromise position. If minimum wages had kept up with production and inflation, it would be somewhere between $19 and $25 an hour. Currently, it's $7.25. So $15, and this is not, once again, they passed the bill. The House is voting on it tomorrow. So let's say this bill passes by the end of the week. It's not, the end of the week would be what, the 12th? The 12th. Okay. Let's say this bill passes the 12th. It's not the 13th. Bam. Everybody has to pay their workers $15 minimum wage. No, it's a 4-year phase-in. So by the time the compromise position happens in 2025, it's already too late by then. So that's what we're looking at. That was the bare minimum that they could do to get this, because this is when they had to do it. Because if there's ever a bill that Joe Biden had to pass, it was this bill. And these 8 Democrats sank it, and now we have to figure out how to fight against both them and the Republicans. And now let me be very clear, because there's going to be people who misconstrue what I just said. Yes, we should absolutely try to flip the Republican seats against the people who voted no against the bill, which is every single Republican. This needs to be said over and over and over again. Any Republican who says, I'm for relief, is lying to you because they've already proved it by voting against this bill. Every single time. So, yes, you should absolutely try to flip those seats. However, you also need to be able to hold your representative accountable. This was the most popular part of the most popular bill in years. This had a 70% approval rating across the board. Okay? This COVID bill was incredibly popular. The fact that all of these senators, either because they were told to by the White House, or they truly are evil and don't believe that you deserve a living wage, or whatever their reason are, voted against this, means that their constituents have to hold them accountable. And I'm not saying don't go vote for them. I'm saying if there's somebody there who primaries them, you see what the primary is. If the primary is pushing for $15 minimum wage, then that's your issue. You vote for that other person. But then you have to compare it to the next person. All right? And here's the other thing, too, about the Sinema vote. So the argument again for Manchin is he did it, and he's the only Democrat who could win in West Virginia. It's impossible for any other Democrat to ever win in West Virginia. And let's be clear, it is very difficult for a Democrat to win West Virginia. And Joe Manchin definitely squeaked by. And I understand the argument that, you're in a red state. It's a little bit harder for a Democrat to actually win these votes. But Kyrsten Sinema voted against this bill too. However, the other Arizona Republican, or the other Arizona Democrat, Mark Kelly voted for this. Mark Kelly won his race by more votes than Kyrsten Sinema did. And as we saw in the general, Florida went for Trump. Florida also voted for a $15 minimum wage. So this is incredibly popular, and the idea that they didn't vote for this is just going to push it back and make it more difficult for Democrats to do this thing in the future. So what do you have to do for this? When you're at these members are at a town hall, you need to hold them accountable. Ask them why and hold them to account. And if they say, well, look, I support it in another bill, the follow-up question is, well, how do you plan to do that? What exactly is your plan to get $15 minimum wage across the finish line now that it is no longer possible through a 50 vote threshold? And that's what you got to keep pushing them till they give it an answer. Now, what I'm about to show you is the more infuriating part. Let's be very clear. I'm sure many people have seen this. What I'm going to show you is not sexist, is not body shaming. It's also not entirely the full clip either. So I'll recommend it. So here is Kyrsten Sinema voting no on the $15 minimum wage. This is, I can't tell you how bad optics is. So this doesn't even show the full clip. So the previous 10 seconds before this, she walks down to the floor, taps Mitch McConnell on the shoulder. She walks over to where she is, looks back to see if Mitch McConnell is looking. He's still not. And then she does the thumbs down with a little curtsy. I don't know what was going on in her head in this, but this is a bad look. There's already ads in Arizona running against her for this. It is inconceivable that she did this. The other thumbs down. So let's compare it to the other. First off, she doesn't even need to do a thumbs down. It's a yay or nay vote. They don't. I don't even know if they have to walk up to that thing. So she did this and then she walked away. So the other thumbs down vote, the most recent one was the John McCain vote for the Medicare for all. So to compare the two Arizona senators with their thumbs down votes, John McCain saved millions of Americans from losing their health insurance. And now keep in mind, there is a little bit more nuance to this, but John McCain saved millions of Americans from losing their health insurance. And Kyrsten Sinema was one of the 58 senators who decided that people don't deserve a living wage. This is then further compounded by the fact that she literally brought cake into the Senate. Now, apparently, it's for the aides who had to read out the bill, because prior to this, Ron Johnson had decided to make them read the entire COVID bill, and then all the Republicans left, or they weren't paying any attention. And this was like a 10-hour reading. So on top of her voting no, like this, she brought cake. It's literally like the worst possible optics for this. And look, I'm not going to pull up all the tweets that they have, because pretty much all of them. She has it, Maggie Hassan has it, Kamala Harris has it, Joe Biden said it on the trail, all of them arguing, we have to get a $15 minimum wage. This vote is just devastating to that, and they have to be held responsible for that. So, all right. So, to wrap this up, yes, this is a big blow to $15 minimum wage. I don't know how they're going to do this again without either the fight for the next reconciliation bill, or without having to change the filibuster. So I don't know where it's going with that. And that is the thing that every single member needs to be pushed on, especially these 8 that voted against it. But to be clear, every single Republican decided you don't deserve a minimum wage increase. So every single Republican who says you deserve one, like Josh Hawley or whoever, or Mitt Romney or whatever they're pushing, they all voted against it in this bill. So that's where it stands here. This is a huge misstep for the Democrats. And I mean, it's a huge misstep in the way that in the optics of it, because it is bad optics. It is also bad policy because it has so much support. Is there a lot of good things in the COVID bill? Yes. Would this have made the COVID bill a slam dunk and made their 2022 chances of maintaining power infinitely better? Absolutely. So look, I don't know how ultimately they're going to push this, because this is still something that's going to be fighting for. But this was not a good way to start the first bill. All right. So if you like my videos, or if you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. Please follow me at Twitter Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next one.